Hi, my name is Cynthia Walker. I'm the owner of Hygiene Helpers, which is an organization or business that supports dental practitioners here in Georgia and South Carolina. I'm also the owner of the Dentistry Group LLC with my husband, Patrick. Um, by trade, I'm a dental hygienist, but today I kind of wanted to speak to you on a subject that's very near and dear to my heart. I wanted to talk to you about teenage sexual promiscuity in females. And the reason why I want to tailor this to females because I really don't have touch. I'm really not engaged with the males as much, but as a person who had a child when I was 19 years old, my freshman year in college. I can kind of speak to the females a little bit more. I can't say that I was so much promiscuous. And what I mean by that, the definition, and the promiscuity is having multiple partners, just multiple different partners, making you sexual promiscuous. I can't say that I had multiple partners at a time, but I can say that where I was in that time in my teenage years was a very dark place that I didn't recognize there were some issues. So I kind of want to touch on those today. So, first, I want to really talk about myself and kind of my story. Um, my father, who was a pastor later on in life, but he left me as far as a child and my siblings when I was about 2 years old. So coming up, I always engaged with my father. He was always very active. He picked us up on weekends, took us on trips. He was active, he was present. But to know him in the home, I did not know that. My mother never remarried after my father and her after they were married. I'll say that. She never remarried. So that kind of sparked a curiosity in me very early to see friends having their fathers pick them up from school, going to father-daughter dances, and not to say, like I said, my dad was there, but because I didn't have a father like the Cosbys, where I wake up in the morning and he's there, that sparked a curiosity in me, and then also an affection that I lacked growing up. Um, my mother was there. My mother made sure the bills were paid. My mother made sure we were respectable. We were dressed decent. But my mother was not a nurturer, so to speak. My mother is the kind that, it's very she's coming around to a place where she can now say she loves she I love you. I'm the same way that I've gathered coming up that, I really didn't tell my children that I loved them, or show that affection. I may hug them. I may, grab their hand and walk with their hands hand in hand, so to speak. But to show that affection, to say I love you, that was something that was hard for me, and coming out of that. So these are just kind of some of the issues, even as an adult, I have to work through. And I'm sure some of the parents that are listening to me today, these are, you feel like they're kind of your affirmations or your love languages. It's just ways that you receive love. And for me, making sure that things were taken care of for my children, that was, I love you. But that's not necessarily the way that they receive love. So the way that I received love from my mother was not necessarily the love that I needed. I am a I am an acts of service kind of person. I'm a words of affirmation kind of person where I need those things. I need to feel accepted, because I was rejected by a father, which we'll get into later in this conversation. But these are just things that I needed to help sustain me and to keep my self esteem where it needed to be. So, with that being said, I'm just going to share my screen with you guys. And this pretty much just talks about everything that we're going to go through today. I hope you guys can see this correctly in the way that I do. So I'm going to start out with this middle ring since we're getting started. So this middle ring is kind of the foundation for the sexual promiscuity for the teenage girls. And this middle ring talks about childhood trauma. Now, when I talk about childhood trauma, it's not necessarily something, they were beat up, they were raped, but it can include those things. It can also include what happened as far as a father leaving, the rejection issues that weren't dealt with as a child or in its infancy. It can also be, maybe someone's mother was in a tragic car accident or their parent was in a tragic car accident or even someone close to them. And now that was a person who did give them the affection that they saw fit, and that person is no longer there. They were tragically taken from them. Well, that can cause a trauma that a child is not able to express. I hope you understand that. Most teenagers are not able to express themselves or to say what is truly going on with them. You really have to be in touch with your emotions and yourself to understand what you're feeling. And I know that they have exercises that teach you, okay, this is how you're feeling. And those kind of things, most people don't experience that until later on in life. So they have a lot of anxiety, or the teenager may have a lot of depression, but they don't know it's depression. You know, people express their emotions in different ways. Some people, if they're depressed, they're going to eat everything in the house. They're going to go and, just get ice cream and just binge all day long. Well, some people will go spend a lot of money in the mall and they know they can't afford these things. There are different avenues of how we express our disappointment or our depression or our anxiety. And so with teenagers, and especially teenage girls, this is one of those areas. They may not express it in a way that we see fit. We may not see them moping around and crying and just lamenting over certain situations. They may just seek external sources, boys, or whether it be females, whatever partner it is, they may go externally to find what they need. And it's kind of a temporal thing. It's not something that will last them. It's just a immediate gratification, so to speak. So that just kind of touches on the childhood trauma that needs to be addressed to kind of move forward. So we'll go out to ring two. And ring two is, what are some of the signs I can look for if my child or my student or, you know, whoever you are seeing, this female, this young teenage female girl, what are some of the signs that I can look for that can show me if this person is experiencing sexual promiscuity? I think the first thing for me would be dishonesty, frequent dishonesty. They're not truthful about, maybe they said they have a boyfriend or this and that. They're not truthful about who that other partner is, because it may be several partners. So they're afraid to bring that partner close to you, or they're not really communicating with you about who that boyfriend or that girlfriend is. These are when you're not truthful, you often lie about, okay, where were you last night? Well, I was out with such and such, but you later find out that is a lie. These are some behaviors that you need to check into. And I know when your child lies to you, then you may be more prone to just put them on punishment or on restriction or take their phone. And not to say that they should not be punished or they should not be restricted, but the root of the issue is they need someone to communicate with them. And so we'll talk about that later. Another thing that I want to kind of discuss is the change in dress. So the teenager that you are seeing or that you have in mind right now, you may see this female dressing more provocatively. They're showing off more cleavage. They're showing off more legs. Just stuff that is very revealing. But here's the flip side of that. You may also see where they are now tomboyish, or they're wearing a lot of baggy clothes, whereas they used to have this very feminine physique and this very feminine um, dress, the hair bows and the hair was all neat and just all those things, and you notice all of a sudden now that's not so. They're wearing sweatpants and the hair back in a ponytail. Well, these are some of the things you need to look for, because they may not understand why they are dressing or why they are hiding the way that they look. But something could have happened. Maybe there was a rape. Maybe there was um, something where someone took advantage of them sexually. And so now they want to conceal all of those areas that once were out in the open and fair game for everyone. So that's another thing, just a change in dress all of a sudden. So if you are a parent to one of these girls, you would look at frequent bladder infections, just the lower back pain, just the feeling in their body, just having to frequently treat bladder infection, kidney infections. Those are some of the things you want to look at as well. Also, if some of like my teenager, my children, they wash their own clothes. I kind of train them early. That's just me, no judgment. But some, you may still do the laundry for these teenagers. If you have a teenage girl and you're finding contraceptives, whether they be oral or condoms, whatever, these are some other things you need to look for. You don't just say, hey, we're carrying this for protection just in case. No, they're either thinking about the act or they have already engaged in the act. So that's just another area. So we will now move out to ring three, excuse me. And on ring three, these are just some things that we can kind of do as parents, as coaches, as teachers, some things that we can do to kind of prevent or kind of help when we know there's a teenage girl that is sexually promiscuous, or they are engaging in this activity frequently. These are just some of the things that we can do to help. So, open communication. This is a big expression. Most of the time, the issue is the child feels like they're not being heard, especially if they are engaging in sexual promiscuity, to kind of backlash at a parent they're angry at, or to kind of defy the parent because it's something they've done, or maybe they've gone through a divorce. Just so many different things that can stem back to that childhood trauma. So now we're at a point where we need to learn to communicate with them more. And I can bet you, I understand this can be difficult to develop an open dialogue with a teenage girl during about something that is, kind of taboo in our society anyway, sex. But that communication is key. And, I can't stress enough, just, praying about it if that's your faith, which is mine. But that is a big thing. Just seeking, how am I supposed to have this dialogue going? How am I supposed to start a communication or a conversation with them about this? But on the flip side of that, when we talk about communication, we also have to talk about being supportive. That's another ring. So when we communicate, we want to make sure that we don't communicate from a perspective of I'm antagonizing, or I'm, just putting them down, because that affects the self-esteem, which we need to have self-esteem building in that whole thing. Being supportive of them and letting them know, hey, you may not have dealt with this. You may not have gone through sexual promiscuity as a parent or as a teacher or as a coach. But if you can somehow just try to relate and try to talk to them in a way that is not demeaning, but to engage, to say, hey, I don't quite know what you're dealing with, but I want to help you in any way I can. I know this may not be easy for you, but this is not normal behavior. Self-esteem building. That was one of my issues. It was acceptance. Dad left So now I just want to be accepted by someone of the opposite sex. So self-esteem, how I viewed myself. I didn't view myself as pretty, or I didn't have the things that other people had. Just looking externally for something that I should have looked inside for. Not having that affirmation from home or my circle at home. Those things we need to have to happen in this instance, intentional about building their self-esteem. I remember, and on this note, I remember, being an adult and still kind of struggling with that, with low self-esteem. And I remember, some of the doctors that I used to work with frequent, just how they saved themselves for marriage. That intrigued me, being out in the work field now, in the workforce, and seeing these people actually did this, and seeing how virginity was so sacred, how they actually kept themselves, and just seeing how their marriages kind of unfolded because they did reserve themselves for one partner. That was honorable to me, and it felt like something that I couldn't get back because I didn't understand what that meant back then. That's where that self-esteem comes in. And I'm sure plenty of people can relate. But this is very important because you don't want a teenager that you're dealing with, a teenage female, to look back on life and regret making those choices. And not to say that, hey, there's redemption for everyone. But that is something that's so special, and to build up that female in a way that they see that they're so special that that they can wait until marriage, that this part of their body is just, it is a gift from God, and how to reserve that for the right person. That is beautiful. It's beautiful to me, but I'll move on. Also, balancing responsibility and balancing freedom. So I know for me, when my mom found out that I was sexually active, you kind of want to track every move. You want to know if there was a tracking device back when I was younger, it would have been on my car or on me. You want to make sure that you balance freedom and responsibility. And what I mean by that, the freedom of, okay, some kids, when they were my age, they were out all night, especially prom night. They were able to stay out until the night after, the day after prom. Not in my house. My mom was not having that. That was just, we didn't do that. But I can't say that that's how you should raise your child. But I can say that when we talk about freedom, when we talk about the balance of freedom, some things are extreme for a 15-year-old or a 16-year-old or a 12-year-old. We have to learn as parents or as guardians or, coaches, how do we balance that freedom? How do we balance it, and how do we tailor it to the child that we're raising? And we know that by their maturity level and their responsibility. Some children can handle a job and can handle, going to school and still make straight A's. Well, some children cannot. Some children need to focus only on school. They can't handle the other external factors. They can't balance that right now. Well, that's what I mean. So find a balance between responsibility and between freedom. But where my mom was concerned, and this is just one of the things, and I'm not down on my mom, but one of the things that I noticed as a child was, I really didn't go anywhere unless it was an extracurricular activity for one of my organizations that I was a part of. So, as far as dating someone or dating the way that it was supposed to be done, that really, I had boyfriends, but dating as my friends did really didn't do that. My mom didn't encourage that. And I can't say that that is wrong. I can say that as a parent now, that when we did, my husband and I, we model the right behavior in front of our children so that they know this is an acceptable way of dating. So my final, and I'm saying final, but it is the most important part of this ring on how do we, prevent, or how do we help someone that's sexually promiscuous, and that is seek professional help. Seeking therapy, seeking a counselor for yourself as a parent or a coach, or whoever's dealing with this teenage girl, seeking professional help for yourself and seeking professional help for that child. Let's get down to the root of that childhood issue in professional counseling, in therapy. Get to the root of that, and professional help will develop it will draw that out to know where it came from, so that as a parent or as a coach or as a teacher, now they can be poured into. I hope that helps, and I hope everything that I said kind of registers. I know that this is probably more for parents, but I'm sure that as coaches and teachers who really just make up the bulk of what what society needs, the teachers are so special, and teachers, you take on such a job kind of as second parents, and I know that you do have an influence on these girls as well. I thank you for your time, and I know that you will be able to deal with them accordingly. And I know that you will be able to help these young people develop so that they won't face these barriers in life and it stunts their growth. Have a great day.